All right, and we are live. I'll go ahead and call to order the regular meeting of the City Council for September 3rd, 2024. First up is invocation and pledge of allegiance that will be led by Councilmember Gardner.
Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, thank you so much, Lord, for this beautiful day, and we're so appreciative of the changes in the seasons and the wonderful place that we get to call home here in Maumelle, God. We just thank you for our beautiful city that we live in with all the trees and just this wonderful place that we have, God. We ask that you give us wisdom tonight as we talk about the city's business, and we ask that we can have a good a meeting where we can share ideas about the future of our city, Lord, that we can come together and work for common solutions that will help the residents here in the city long term and keep this a great place to live. Lord, thank you for all of those that work in our city and serve us each and every day and serve the residents and take care of this great place. We're just so appreciative of them and all that they do and contribute to our city. We ask you for blessings in our life, God, and we ask that we'll find someone to serve and make their life better each day. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Gardner. That will bring us to the approval of the minutes of the August 19th regular meeting. Y'all have received a copy of that. I'll open the floor for discussion. If there is none, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the minutes.
So moved. Second.
I've got a motion second. Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I did have one item there, I'm sorry. Back under, it was the last page of the minutes, we were talking about the 4-lane Club Manor Road down there. And it said, the last sentence in the middle of that page said, Mayor Norris said the road will not be torn out, but provisions will be made on the outer 2 lanes. If I understood it correctly, it was actually the 2 lanes that would be away from Lake Willistine.
The lanes that will have the side path are the side path and median are the 2 lanes closest to Maumelle Boulevard.
Okay. All right. So I'll make a motion to change it to exactly that.
I'm sorry, are you referring to under the mayor's comments?
No, it's under the, it was the very last page of the minutes. It's before the mayor's comments.
But Mayor Norris said, Mosley, so this is on the second to last page of the minutes under Resolution 2024-33.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Third paragraph down is the paragraph we're looking at. It says, Councilmember Mosley expressed concern about cutting the capacity of the road in half. Currently is a nice 4-lane road. Going down to 2 lanes may become congested. Mosley asked if the road itself will be disturbed. Mayor Norris said the road will not be torn out. But
Yeah, I just wanted to get that accurate.
I can go back, I believe that's a verbatim quote. I can go back and check that for you. And if it's not, you want it to say what?
The intent was that I wish I had a map in front of me.
I got to go by what you say, not by what you intended. If he intended to say something, I can't.
Okay. Yeah, you have and I don't know if we can just reflect it in these minutes. I don't know specifically what was said or what was not, so I can't.
I just wanted to get in there what the facts were, which 2 lanes were going to be affected.
Correct.
Can we put that in these minutes?
Is it the eastern 2 lanes are the lanes that will be removed? So, is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion, please.
Okay, a motion, Councilmember Tierney?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I understood what it is when you're saying the eastern 2 lanes. Are we talking about just one side of it, or are we talking about the 2 outside lanes?
Well, the eastern 2 lanes, so you've got the 2 lanes that are closest to Lake Willistine now. Currently, those are the 2 southbound lanes. Those will remain untouched, and one of those lanes will be the southbound and one will be the northbound. The eastern 2 lanes, closest to Maumelle Boulevard, will be a median and a side path.
Now, I have to go back and look at the road. I was always thinking you were gonna be taking the outer 2 lanes, and then that way, whatever kind of a crown they might have built into the road for, water, running off the road, would be, going in both directions, so, I
Yeah,
mean,
no, sir.
or I wouldn't.
I'm not saying that's not what you thought, but that was not ever
Okay.
the plan, yeah.
Thanks for that clarification.
Okay. So I have a motion to amend the minutes, motion second. Councilmember Gardner?
I guess my only question is, we're not, if that's not what was stated, we're making a motion to amend the minutes, and the minutes is a reflection of what was stated during a meeting. If that's not what was stated, I'm not comfortable going back and adding what our opinion is to something after the fact. And that's why I was asking if we could just make a motion to, during this meeting's minutes, we motioned that's what the intent was, in lieu of going back and adding our opinion to previous minutes when that might not have been said. I feel like we're changing the minutes after the fact and adding something that didn't actually happen. A minutes is a reflection of what happened during that meeting. So I would be for making a motion to put a comment on this meeting's minutes if that's more appropriate. I just don't feel it's appropriate to go back and add something that did not happen to a previous meeting.
Thank you, sir. Madam City Clerk?
Councilmember Gardner, what I'm gonna do, because it's a legal document, I can't, write the intent. I can only write what was said, and once I review it and I confirm that what I've written is actually what was said, I'll notate as such, but if I go back and I see that what Councilmember Mosley implied, was referenced that night, then I'll include it. But if that's not what was said, that's not what I will include, and I will include that in my minutes, for the next meeting, my findings. But I cannot write what someone intended to say or their thought. I can only what they actually said.
The only problem with, because the council adopts the minutes, the only problem with incorrect minutes is it's like printing a correction or revision in a newspaper. If you have a newspaper article that states what the facts are, and then you come back in the next newspaper and you write corrected, by the way, it wasn't Bob, it was Joe, the record that most people are going to look at then will be the incorrect one. And so the benefit of coming back after the fact and amending minutes is that we can make sure we got it right.
I'm with you, Mayor.
So I do think, and I'm interested in the city attorney's opinion, in terms of accuracy. Mr. City Attorney?
What I would suggest is that the 8:19 minutes show brackets at this paragraph and say C 9:3 minutes. See discussion in 9:3 minutes. I tend to agree with Councilmember Gardner. I think if there is it should reflect what was said, not what was intended to have been said. Although I do understand the confusion that can cause, as mentioned by Mayor Norris. I think that would be the best method, is just show it in brackets and either direct people to the 9:3 minutes or just correct it in brackets. So it's clear that it wasn't actually said at that time, but it's on the subject what was intended to have been said. If that makes sense. Clear as mud, right?
It does. Councilmember Mosley?
I didn't mean to hit it again, but I'll go along with city attorney's comments if that's what you think.
Is that amending your motion to include brackets after this sentence saying see minutes from September 3rd council meeting?
That sounds good, thanks.
And is that also the intent of the seconder?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any, hang on, I might have lost. There we go. Is there any additional discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. I'd entertain a motion to adopt the minutes as amended.
Second.
We've got a motion and second. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. We don't have any public comment cards, so we'll move on to department reports. I asked Deb to hop up and talk a little bit with y'all about C-Click Fix.
Hi, everybody. I'm Deb Roush. I'm the Chief of Staff to Mayor Norris. I'm in at 4 Fairway Woods Circle. Thank you, Mayor, for letting me talk about a few things. I just wanted to, I'm actually going to do a full report for you next time, but there are a couple of timely things that I just wanted to update you on. So the first one, you can even do tonight if you want. This has been a push of the mayor's, I know, for a bit, is having some, bringing some art into the community, and we thought that there would be no better way to start than at City Hall. So we are having something called Maumelle Masterpieces, and it's a City Hall art exhibit. So I know we did something similar to this maybe last year, a couple years ago. I know there were a couple of you all who were part of it. And so what we're doing this time is we're inviting local artists to show their art, excuse me, they have at least 14 pieces of art throughout City Hall, one artist, and our first artist, his name is Weldon Ball, and we have him showcasing. What we're going to do is invite the students from local schools to come in and tour it, and then we're also going to give them little canvases. So this is abstract art, so we're going to give them a canvas and the Maumelle rings, our logo, and ask them to go back and paint the rings in abstract art. And then we're going to have a little contest here. The mayor is going to go with some of the City Hall staff and award it, make awards to the kids in the schools. So kind of a partnership, an art partnership with our local artists and with the schools as well. So we're kind of excited, and that's tomorrow. We have 7th graders coming from the art class at the charter school. And we have other teachers, art teachers, who are super interested in it. So if you have a chance, we have information up about Mr. Ball and his arts in the hallway. It's beautiful. And us as City Hall employees love it because it adds just something bright and fun. So that's happening right now. The other thing I wanted to talk about was our big push with C-Click Fix. And this is something that I'm hoping that you can all help with. I know we've had C-Click Fix for a while. It's been very successful, but we're really wanting to try to improve citizen communication. And as such, we're going to be, we have a reporter who's actually going to come out and do a story on C-Click Fix. And so we're really wanting to ramp that up so that we're getting as much engagement as we can. And so hopefully you all can talk to your, I know many of you use social media. Maybe you can put it on your social media. You'll see it on our social media. What we're finding as we use it, and as I get into it, is that we're really able to engage back and forth with our citizens. So it's not just reporting an issue, and then it goes to the right department, and then it's fixed, which that does happen, but we're also able to engage back and forth. And in a city, you have so many limited opportunities to do that, and it's working well with C-Click Fix, so we've decided to go full force with that. So that's an effort we're undertaking. So those are just 2 big ones that are coming up. Like I said, I'll give you a full report, but there are 2 events that I wanted you to know about. And these are in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. One of them is a food truck festival that's going to be on November 2nd that, oh my gosh, we put on Facebook, and we already have, I think, 200 and something people saying they're attending. So it's going to be a big food truck at Lake Willisteen. This is kind of to ride the momentum of the eclipse. We got a lot of feedback from the community saying this was really fun. We want more fun things to do at Lake Willisteen and at the community center, places like that. So we're trying to do that. And one of the ways we can do that is with partnering with Kelly. So we're doing that. And the other thing, and this is not necessarily my project, I'm just since I'm up here, I'm letting you know, Courtney Dunn is doing a lot of this work in conjunction with the Chamber. And the other one is super neat. I hope you'll come to this one. We're having a career expo at the community center, and that's on October the 2nd. And the first part of that will be an interactive, I guess, I don't know, I just want to say it's interactive with 7th and 8th grade students from all of the schools, where they'll come in and meet and talk with local businesses, learn about businesses, learn about job opportunities. And then the second part of that day is actually going to be a job fair, where the community can come in and businesses can recruit. So that's going to be exciting as well. So that's just 4 quick things that are timely that I wanted to tell you about, and I'll be back next month with statistics and fun things that we're doing communications-wise. Does anybody have any questions?
Looks like you're good, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The next item of business is the Planning Commission report. Councilmember Shin.
It's a very brief meeting, under 15 minutes. 2 issues, the replat of Lake Liquor subdivision, primarily the piece of ground that the liquor store itself sits on. And it was approved. And an extension to the Harris Pfeiffer addition on their planned replatting. They have changed engineers and changed construction companies, and so there's a delay. And so they've asked for their second, and if they have to ask for another one, it comes before us. And that's it.
You lucked out with a good meeting.
Very much.
Thank you, sir. That brings us to procedural motion. At this time, I entertain a motion to have all ordinances and resolutions read by title only. We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. That brings us to unfinished business. The first item of unfinished business is the 3rd reading of Ordinance 1131, enacting supplemental provisions of the City Code. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1131, an ordinance adopting and enacting supplemental provisions of the City Code for the City of Maumelle, Arkansas, providing for the repeal of certain ordinances not included therein, providing for the manner of amending such code, and providing when such code and its ordinance shall become effective.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll go ahead and open the floor for discussion.
Motion to approve ordinance 1131.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Seeing none. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Mosley,
Yes.
Councilmember Grunwald,
Yes.
Councilmember Mazzoni,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Councilmember Tierney,
Yes.
Councilmember Shin,
Yes.
Councilmember Holt.
Yes.
Motion passes. Ordinance 1131 is adopted. That concludes unfinished business. We'll move on to new business. The first item of new business is Ordinance 1132, amending solid waste collection fees. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1132, an ordinance to amend the Maumelle City Code to increase the solid waste collection fee and for other purposes.
Thank you, ma'am. First of all, I want to say I reached out to the consultant on Tuesday, August 20th, so the Tuesday following the council meeting, asking some of those questions that were brought up regarding Table A and whether or not the rate was being set on, or if the rate was being set on actual expenses. If it is the case, and it is the case, that actual expenses are far below budgeted expenses due primarily to staffing vacancies, then if we're setting the rate based on actuals versus budgeted, if we become full staffed, are we then basically under anticipating what the actual cost will be? At 4:35 p.m. today, I got an updated study that is basically the recommendation is $722 per customer increase instead of $664. However, Table 4, which was the table that we were referencing to figure out how they calculated that rate, is still the old Table 4 And by the time I realized that, I was walking into this meeting, so I have not reached back out to see if there is an updated table 4, or how specifically they came up with that increase of $722 per month as opposed to $664. Nonetheless, if that were used, if that recommended rate were used, it would make the monthly sanitation fee $22.72. So I wanted to pass that information on. I'll follow up and see if I could figure out what Table A is, and give us the ability to look at those numbers, and then disseminate that to the council. In the meantime, I also wanted to point out something. We addressed it a little bit at the last meeting. Currently, the ordinance is not written with the option to have Waste Management take over recycling. There were some concerns or questions at the last meeting about whether or not, because that would replace the small tote with a full-size cart, and there were questions about, does everyone have to have a cart? Mike Hogan reached out to Waste Management, and somebody who doesn't want that larger cart and just doesn't want to recycle can have Waste Management pick that cart up, so that it's not just dead weight there in the garage or wherever the case may be. That would not affect their rate, just the fact that they wouldn't have to have that cart. Additionally, I wanted to maybe highlight again one of the big issues that we're having in the sanitation department is staffing related. That is, filling the vacant positions that are there. By rotating over to having Waste Management handle the recycling, it eliminates the need for, effectively, the need for a rear load truck, a CDL driver, and 2 throwers. Mike, I'm not sure if you wanted to come up and talk about that a little bit more, or just about that impact, because I know we're getting to the point that it's been very difficult to recruit and retain people for those positions.
Mike Hogan, 600 Cogdale Drive. Yeah, so we kind of talked about it before. There's good and bad that comes out of everything. I think there are some good benefits to that. I like our recycle program that we have now, but we're the only city that's not on that program that's part of the regional recycling district. It would force more people into recycling, not force them, but maybe get them interested into it if we went to that program. You get the bigger rolling carts, which is a good thing for some people. Yeah, you know, with the staffing issues, that's the big issue now. I hate to let go of our program because it's a good program, but then again, at this point in time, it may be a thought to look at and to consider.
So we have had, I think at the last council meeting, I announced that we had missed a recycling, or it fell behind on a recycling route for the first time in as long as Mike could really remember when. We fell behind some on the yard waste as well due to staffing. Heck, I went out with Mike. Mike and I together were the throwers on the back of one of the trucks one day, as I really, this is a position that we're just having a lot of difficulty filling. And so the idea wasn't necessarily that my labor would be helpful, as much it was giving me the opportunity to work on that team with Mike. I told Mike that we might be the oldest average throwing crew that has run on Maumelle, with the 2 of us on the back of the truck there. And then we've been meeting, we had a really good meeting, I think, with Mike and HR and his senior leaders over in his department, just trying to really assess what we can be doing to recruit and retain people in that department. The fact of the matter is, thrower is not a glamorous job. It's a tough job. Is a good workout. I found out that the part that I thought would be hardest, which is picking up all the branches and putting them in the truck, was actually not the hardest. The hardest part is just hanging on to the back of that truck as it's speeding up and slowing down and turning. And so we were looking at a few ideas that might make it less taxing on you back there. But ultimately, what I asked Mike to come up and is dollars and cents are obviously very important. And when I met with that crew, one of the things that they wanted me to stress to y'all is that they would be able to do that. We often measure cost not just in terms of dollars and cents, but opportunity costs and sort of indirect costs. When the sanitation department runs behind, we pull people, we pull people from the grounds crew, we pull people from the street department, we pull people from other areas to come fill in. So if those positions aren't needed, then the idea being that we're not pulling people off the grounds crew as often, we're not pulling people off the street crew as often. So they wanted me to really stress to y'all the impact that this would have, not just on sanitation, but other departments. And I said, I think I can do that and make sure that we're addressing that element of it. Finally, I was going to ask the city attorney to, you may have noticed that there was not a built-in CPI increase, and I'll let the city attorney explain the reasoning on that.
So Mayor Norris asked me to put that into the draft ordinance. I went and looked at the statutes that are kind of the basis of the city's authority on this. One of them says that the city council has to set it on in a fee schedule as set forth in an ordinance, and the other one just refers to city's authority. And I consulted a lawyer at the municipal league about this, and I also looked to see how other cities were handling it and how many other cities were pegging it to CPI. Of course, that's a sensible thing. I think as Mayor Norris pointed out at the last meeting, this is the only kind of, all the other rates we have are percentages, so they automatically take into account inflation. This is the only thing we charge, it seems that doesn't. And of course, it would be very convenient to peg it so it gets automatically updated every year with the CPI. Question, of course, for me was whether the city council had authority to set it so that it would automatically increase without taking the specific action of passing an ordinance. Found no case law, found no attorney general opinion on it. I found 4 cities that do peg their solid waste or recycling or trash fees to CPI. Fayetteville, Texarkana, Van Buren is set to beginning in 2026, I think, and Russellville also pegs it to CPI. Ultimately, I advise that it's not, that the city council doesn't have that authority. I think it's certainly sensible to take CPI into account when deciding what to set the rate at. But for the strictly legal question as to whether you can just automatically kind of outsource what the rate is going to be, I think that departs from the statute too far. The statute, I think, my interpretation, it's wanting the city council as the closest governmental body to the people, wanting the city council to be directly accountable to the residents when we set these rates, and not to give that authority to set the rate, to decide what the rate is, to unelected people. In this case, it would be the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
So I just asked the city attorney not to include that provision then, rather than include it and ask you to remove it, even though the council would kind of, the consensus seemed to be to include that. So with that, I will go ahead and open the floor, and we will start with Councilmember Grunwald.
So when we talked about this in our last meeting, I don't remember which option moving the recycling over to waste management was, but I was actually for it, and maybe I should have spoken up then. For all the reasons that have been named, one, it takes a little bit of pressure off of waste management. It decreases expenses that are already, high, alleviates the staff that are missing, that we need to fill. alleviates that stress of having to fill those. But I do have a couple of questions. I don't remember because I don't have my notes from last week in front of me. So how much would that add if we were to go with waste management for recycling onto the already 2272?
I'm not sure if we included it, the version was option 2, which was a $4.38 increase, from.
Okay, so it would go up to 2652?
That was at the 664, which is the number that is in the ordinance, was the 664.
But that's also assumed a decrease in personnel. It was $6.08 a month, and they said it would take off some personnel and truck, which doesn't seem to be the case, so that's not gonna be, that's not gonna be an added 438, 'cause we won't see that full savings.
Say that again?
Let me find it in there. If you look on last meeting's agenda on page,
So on the bottom of page 10, for those that have the study, it says that, the real cost of using waste management for recycling pickup will be $6.08 per home. We would, by eliminating 2 throwers and a driver and the truck, presumably then the savings to the city would be $1.70, and so the net increase would be $4.30.
so if we did this, we could reduce our manning?
Yes, but that is included in that dollar. My understanding was that $1.70 savings we saw per residence per month includes the,
Laying off of some people.
well, there's no laying off of people.
So
Those are
then we
vacant
wouldn't see
positions
that
now.
savings. See what I'm saying? Our actual expenses would not go down, so that $1.70 a month would not go down.
Using the 660, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
So, but,
we're talking about, it would be slots that are unfunded or not filled.
correct.
So, in effect, our what salaries and benefits would not change. So therefore, you would not see that $1.70 savings. It would make our manning problem better, but we would not see that decreased cost.
So I guess I think, and fun way of looking at that, and accurate, I think, if we were looking at the 664 increase, which was based on actuals, I would agree it wouldn't, but if you're using the 722, that is the budgeted number, presumably, again, I haven't seen that table yet, but presumably if that is based on budgeted expenses, not actuals, then you would see that budget savings, but not actual savings. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd have to see the numbers and where they
The
came
table's
up with them.
important, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because otherwise, we're looking at,
And then,
if we
and the
go with the 722 and add in that, if we don't see a savings, we're almost doubling the monthly expenses for people, and we could get more bang of the buck, I think, keeping the program and taking some extra money and increasing the salaries, rather than, making people pay an extra
so how do you,
$4.22 but yet still have the same problem we have now.
so if we're saying those positions are vacant, but that job is still getting done by people presumably in different thrower positions, or by laborers, or by operators in other departments, we're still effectively paying that expense for that work to be done.
Right, at the risk of, like you've said, we're not being able to meet 100% of the expectations based on manning. And as everything goes by, if we keep the current rate salary, that will not improve.
Gotcha.
One thing that might improve is, you know, the tipping fees for the recycling would go down, so, yeah.
Which I was trying to pull the budget up. I believe we've got budgeted every year 50,000 in tipping fees.
I believe that's
Um,
correct.
So just, sorry, back to what I was asking, and now what are the tipping fees?
Tipping fees are the fees that we pay to either the landfill
Okay.
or that's the fees we pay to the recycling center and the place we're dropping off the waste.
So, according to what Councilmember Mazzoni was saying, if we're understanding these figures correctly, and I know we're gonna look at this again, but it would raise the cost to $28.80, which is $13 more than where we are. Even with that said, I still tend to lean toward it. I don't know how people are gonna feel, you know, some people are not gonna like the big bins. Some people don't like the little bins and have been asking for the big bins. But I do wanna know, if we decided to do this, would this start in 2025 or start immediately?
It would take a certain amount of time for us to get on, draft up contracts. It's probably something we wouldn't see till the start of the year, because they'd have to make sure they've got it'd take a little while.
But it would start this year sometime,
Not necessarily.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We haven't been in, discussions with, Waste Management has a contract, or it's sort of a base contract built through Regional Recycling Solid Waste Reduction District, that they've got their rates for other cities. We've been using that rate, and sort of informal conversation between Mike Hogan and some of the folks over Vernon James at Waste Management. We haven't started the process of getting onto the contract, notified them that they need to make sure to have 7,800 cans. I assume that they don't have that many cans just sitting on their yard. They'd have to buy that, and so there'd be a lead time
Okay.
for that.
This is my last question, when was the last time that fees were raised?
2006, January 3rd, 2006. We included the resolution in that packet.
So 18 years ago, is that right, Beth? I do think either way, either with the recycling or without the recycling, there's gonna be a little bit of sticker shock. But we just have to remember that we haven't raised the rates in 18 years. So, that's all.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilmember Mosley.
Yes, sir. I wanted to say I agree 100% with what Mr. Mazzoni was saying. And there was some verbiage in the minutes where Mr. Hogan was talking, and it mentioned that he said that we were paying a lower salary than surrounding cities, but you said that because we had less revenue, you wanted to keep the salary lower than those. Was that accurate?
I don't recall saying that I wanted to keep the salaries lower, but, yeah, I think.
You weren't in favor of a raise, though,
Favor of what, sir?
of a raise in those salaries?
Well, I think my comment was, at the last meeting, you know, at some point, we, you know, probably need to get more competitive or closer to some of the other surrounding city salaries, because ours is a little bit lower.
But that's my idea is I think we probably ought to just raise the salary. If we're having trouble, it's a supply and demand thing. It's kind of like the police back there when we couldn't hire police. That seems to be the case right now. Everybody's having trouble getting that kind of help at the cities, so we may just have to raise it. And I think that would be, as Mr. Mazzoni said, I think that'd be a lot cheaper solution than turning our deal over to Waste Management. And I know, I sure don't want to see another trash can in this city. I've been looking at the one across the street from me for 15 years. His house is immaculate otherwise, and he's just got an ugly old trash can out there, and he's moved it closer to the street. I don't want to see two of them. And I don't think the residents here do either, and I don't think we need to bump our rates up by as much as it costs to get that. I think all the council members last week were in favor of keeping what we had, so.
No, we weren't.
Pardon?
No, we weren't.
Oh, well, nobody
Speak
said.
for me on that.
Well, anyway, I'm not in favor of doing this, so, and I never did get an answer last week about, at the current pace, if we just keep on going the way we are, when do we go into the red? Has anybody figured that one out? Has the mayor or Mr. Mazzoni?
I did not, when it goes, so I did not look at it.
I mean, you know, do we go along for 3 more years? Do we go along for 6 months? Yeah. So, did you want to just table this, Mr. Mayor, since you're trying to push for something that's not in this ordinance?
So I kind of brought it up at the last meeting to make sure that it was talked about. And then after meeting with the Public Works crew, what I'm doing is advocating that all the factors be considered by the city council. Personally, I use the small recycling bin and it works just fine for me. I personally never feel like it's not big enough and think to myself, well, I wish we had a bigger one. But we're kind of talking about it now, and one of the big things that doesn't show up in the solid waste study, and I had told Mike throughout the whole process that like this is looking at the dollars and cents, which is obviously very important, but that I would give that department the ability to advocate for the pros and cons operationally, and the way that affects their department. So I just wanted to make sure that we're also making a decision on operations, not just dollars and cents. And so I was just trying to get that out. In terms of tabling it, that is up to the council. I'm not necessarily advocating that. I'm also not necessarily advocating that we go back and rewrite that. I think maybe if we had, and I've got a lot of buttons pushed, I think we'll get a good indication of the council. If they seem to think that more of them want to add that back in, then maybe we're talking about rewriting it and tabling it. Also, I'm not a huge fan of coming in at the last minute and saying, I just got this report an hour and 15 minutes before walking in, with no cheat sheet or red line to figure out what was changed and not. So I went through the whole 29-page report again. Inevitably, I missed something. I did notice that Table 4 was still the old Table 4. Table 4, you may recall, is the one that led to their recommended rate increase. So it's certainly not a completed draft that came back to me. But let's see what we do have more lights here. So Councilmember Shin.
Question, would there be an effect on the transfer station in any way over that? Or would it be totally separate?
It's totally separate, and it would remain the same as far as recycling and everything we do.
Okay. And one comment, when we're talking about police or firemen, they'll go for a better check in North Little Rock or somewhere like that. I don't really think our garbage men do that. They'll go to one of the other factories here, one of the warehouses, and go to work instead of riding on the truck in the sunshine. They can go in there and work in an air-conditioned warehouse. So to sit here and say we need to match that rate or offer $2 more than North Little Rock, I don't know that we're talking about the same situation as we would be if we're talking about police officers or firemen.
Thank you, sir. I also said I wanted to make sure we're considering all the different sides. Mike has told me this for quite a while, and he's conclusory said it here. He believes, and I tend to agree, that one of the benefits of keeping recycling in-house is your average resident is still going to call the city of Maumelle if the recycling didn't get picked up, if it's their can's not right, you know, whatever their needs are. And the belief is that internally we're a very responsive department. relative to a lot of competitors in that arena. And so by going to waste management, we lose some of that individual ability for us to sort of address needs that we would address in just a third party there. So the one unaccounted for downside is we lose that ability to have that customer service. Councilmember Tierney?
Speaking of considering all the different options and things to consider, when Maumelle recently did away with our wastewater processing and contract with the city of North Little Rock to handle that, we've just seen lots and lots of increases since that time. I mean, we lost all ability to control those costs. Now, I can, testify, because I've been a customer of Waste Management, and I can testify about how, boy, they'll give you a great rate to get you in, and then they're gonna hammer you with the maximum rate every opportunity they can to increase it. And they are a nightmare to try to discontinue business with. You gotta send a letter like 6 months in advance of your cancellation date. You got like a 10-day window, and then they'll try to say, oh, we didn't get it, then you gotta show your certification proof of delivery. So I've had my nightmares dealing with Waste Management, and pricing was one of them. I mean, a great upfront rate to get you in as a customer, and then after that, it's just gonna be constant increases. So what we're looking at right now is the introductory rate, and I'm afraid that down the road, we might be saying, oh, why didn't we keep that in-house?
You are absolutely correct. Just for the record, and you know this, but in case it ends up in the minutes, the city has not ever run a waste management or water. That was Maumelle Water Management, which was a suburban improvement district, MSID 500. But that issue is the same. The one maybe counterbalance to that is the recycling contract, so to speak, is through regional recycling. So that includes Little Rock, North Little Rock, Pulaski County, Sherwood, Jacksonville, and not Maumelle. And the what they do is go through this pretty fierce negotiation with them, and I think they even occasionally bid. The only other sort of contender that we have seen is Republic, but they sort of hold that idea that all of this business in Pulaski County is about to move over. So there is a little more collective bargaining that we'd see on an individual basis, but we effectively do lose the ability to control cost after that, in that sense. So you're correct. Councilmember Gardner?
Mr. Hogan, we're giving you a leg workout today, up and down, up and down. So last week when we talked about this, we kind of discussed it more as a council and walked through the scenarios a little bit. I feel like maybe the recommendation has changed somewhat, and maybe not changed, but we were kind of, I felt, leaning towards keeping the recycling in-house, and now we're talking about the opportunity cost of maybe we should go to waste management, how that would free up some staff and things like that. What has changed between now and then? Or maybe it's just now more voices are being heard, and I would rather lean on what Public Works is advocating for, because these 8 people around here, I don't think any of us have grown up in sanitation. We don't, and I really do not like legislating processes from here, because I think that is a terrible way to do business. So from an expert's opinion, have your thoughts shifted on this, or are we just really starting to kind of flesh these ideas out some more so that we get some better input?
Yeah, I don't think ideas have changed. This is stuff that's been talked about in our department. What can we do to make things better since we're so short-staffed? And I've said before, me and Mayor Norris, we do have a good recycling program. We take pride in it. Low contamination rates, so there's good and bad with what we do in-house now. The staffing is the biggest issue. I know we get a lot of calls with residents wanting the bigger carts or whatever, but I don't think nothing's changed. It's just stuff that we've talked about, and what are the options? There's good and bad with, any direction that we go, and I know there's an expense to it. So if we did go to waste management, I'm not saying one way or the other. it's y'all's choice.
What do you think?
That's
we
what I was
should do?
gonna ask, yeah,
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
Public Works
so-
opinion? Honestly, I would-
so-
that's what I would prefer.
Yeah, so, we are the only city, that's in the recycling program that's not a part of this. You know, with the staffing issues, that's the biggest ordeal right now. I don't know, you know, all the calls that are coming in, is kind of like Mayor Norris said, we kind of control those in-house. Sometimes we can take care of these things. But I do know, with Waste Management, Recycle America taking it over, we're still gonna get the calls. The grunt of the work is still coming to us. We'll have to facilitate that to them. I don't know how quick they are to respond. You know, I think they provide a good service, but they certainly won't get to it as quick as us. And I do know that more calls will come in if we go that route with Waste Management, because everybody will be paying for it. Everybody will be required to recycle. That helps the recycling out, but with that being
Wait,
said.
really quickly, so we some cities have mandated recycling. There's nothing on the table that says we're trying to mandate recycling.
Right.
Just,
So, just due to the staffing, you know, if it wasn't for the staffing right now, being so hard, to hire people, I'd say let's keep it the same. And, you know, I try to stay hopeful, you know, recruit some good people in. But yeah, you know, when COVID hit, that hit us hard, but man, nobody wants to work. And right now, it's the worst I've seen it in the 21 years that I've been here as far as staffing. And you know, I take pride in what we do. We've got a lot of good employees, and to see us not being able to keep up with grass mowing, the weed eating, the recycle, it's discouraging. So yeah, that's the biggest issue is the staffing right now. It's not that we're trying to get rid of what we got implemented into place, because I think our recycling program is a good program.
Well, the economy has been, for wages, has been difficult the last few years, and we're seeing where it's really affected our city with trying to recruit people to fill that role.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even with an increase of, I don't know, however much we may increase the salaries, I think we're still going to continue to see a challenge in that area, because there's a number of places you can go get jobs that pay a better wage. So it's gonna continue to be a struggle. You know, moving on to kind of what Councilmember Mosley was talking about with either, you know, tabling it or moving on. I think this is very important that we deal with this in the near future. That may be 2 months, that may be 3 months. We don't need to keep putting it off, but I'm also not comfortable with these numbers that we have in front of us, because, you know, what we saw a couple of weeks ago, we quickly pointed out an error in their table that they used, and now the mayor gets a new rate, you know, hours before the meeting. I'm not comfortable. I'm just not comfortable with those numbers, and I want to make sure we do it right. And also, I want to make sure that we do the program right. Whatever the sanitation program looks like, I really don't want it to be legislated from here. I want us to look through all the numbers and make a decision, but I want it to be something that Public Works is behind and ready to move forward on. So I certainly couldn't vote for this tonight, because I'm not confident in those numbers, or even the process, to be honest. I really want us to do what's best for the city and what you feel is best for your department.
And I mean, we have options. I mean, we could go to the bigger rolling carts and have an automated truck pick it up, but there comes an expense at that as well. But it you know, relieves some of the throwers being out in the elements. So,
Yeah.
you know, we have options.
I wanted to point out a couple other things. The reality, I think we need to look at the general rate increase, certainly, and you've heard that from Beatrice, the finance director, time and time again. There isn't the same urgency necessarily with changing recycling. It alleviates some of the staffing issues, but quite frankly, it's not like we have all but 2 positions that we can't fill. we've got some, I think we've got some good leads on some innovative approaches to address some of the staffing stuff. And we've got sort of all hands on deck, dealing with that issue. And you'll recall the waste management, or going to the big cart and having waste management do it, as well as the leaf blower, were just options that I asked the consultant to look into, because we were looking at other things also. So that, just throwing that out there, it's perfectly conceivable that we proceed with a rate increase that does not include waste management taking over recycling. Give it a little while to see how everything shakes out, and it's a decision that we can look at another time. And quite frankly, a lot of the cost determination for the recycling program is still rough, in a sense that I think we had to provide most of that information. We don't have fully built out the financial tracking that lets us really dial deep into where particular sanitation costs are going to, right? And so if we're talking about there's certain X vacant positions attributed to throwers, how are we attributing that to the different, are we just saying it's all for sanitation and none for yard waste or recycling? They were asking us for a lot of information. I'd be willing to bet that we would be able to as equally determine the costs of recycling in-house on our own as we would be able to have the consultant do it. I think largely we had to tell them that number anyways. And as we continue to sort of use the enhanced tools of the financial software to better track and dial into these sort of programs, the better we're able to really figure out where those costs are, short of just saying, I've got 2 throwers on the back of the recycling truck, 1 truck and 1 driver, therefore the cost is their total salary is divided by, per resident. So, Council Member Mosley?
Yeah, can I ask our city attorney, if we change the rate that we've got in this ordinance right now for just keeping us going, the $22 or whatever the cents is, if we just change that in the next meeting, do we have to go back to first reading?
It has to be changed by ordinance, so the only way you could change it in the next meeting would be if you waived some of the 3 readings. Requires a 2/3 vote.
You're saying we'd have to go back, start over again?
Or waive the readings,
Okay,
which requires a 2/3 vote.
all right.
It just has to be done by ordinance.
That's a major change then, okay.
No, you could, so if you wanted, right now it says 2214. And if instead you wanted to change it to 2272, you could orally amend it. Madam City Clerk could reread it by title only, and it would have done the first reading tonight. And then to be passed, to be adopted, you either have to have 3 readings, or you have to waive the sequential meetings requirement by 2/3 vote, and you can have all 3 readings tonight, if you choose.
Okay. Here's what I'd suggest, is that we just keep the ordinance as it is, put in the other price, and if, for the next meeting, and we just go from there, because I think we've still got a consensus I like the way this one's actually written, so I don't know that I want to table it to go to something that I don't like, so thank you. Also, could we open up the floor for anybody that might want to do a resident comment? Because this isn't really what we saw taking place when this came out. So there may be somebody that wants to voice an opinion on this.
Yes, sir. You're saying this? What isn't the way?
Well, we're making some. Never mind. Let's just forget that. Never mind.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Grunwald?
So is tonight our third reading?
It is the first reading.
Okay, it is first reading, okay. So we have 2 more readings for discussion, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That's all.
Mr. City Attorney?
The caveat is that if you decide to change something in it at, 2 weeks from now, it'll revert to first reading.
Councilmember Gardner?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate your comments there about adjusting the rate. I mean, we kind of got lost on the recycling for a minute. To adjust the rate. I think we're good on that point. And even doing nothing with our program, we've at least increased the revenue so that we can afford, or we're not draining it each month. What Councilmember Mosley suggested, amending this tonight to 2272, I would be okay with that. Again, I still couldn't vote for it in 2 more weeks or 2 more meetings until we actually saw the legit numbers behind that. Because I'm afraid we may end up having to amend it again. But at least if we were to change it to the 2272, that puts us on track with what the consultant recommended, and then we can review the numbers at the future meeting. Hopefully they'll give it to us before then. And if not, then we would table it at that point. But at least we're keeping the ball, moving forward. And I would appreciate that. I think that would be a good effort on our part to do that. So I think I would be okay with that, even though I may not vote for it until we see the data behind the numbers.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Mazzoni?
Yeah, I agree with both, Councilmember Gardner and you, Major Norris, in that we have to keep going on this. The biggest issue is the fees. We also have another deadline coming out, and that is budget season is coming up. So we may not have 100% solution by then, but I want to make sure I'm clear, even after, so we need 3 readings on this, and then it's a 60-day waiting period for an ordinance to become effective at the timeline. So we basically have, if we want to get it, at least for the beginning of the year, and not make an odd financial year, we need to have this passed by the end of by our second one in October-ish.
Well, so we don't need the 60 days to pass before we begin making budgeting decisions, right? We don't have to have this enacted before we were to increase the revenue and of anticipation of that happening. And then so I don't know that is the case, because in October and November, we will still be working on the budget itself. And we've got a timeline this time. I meant to include it in the packet with prospective budget meeting dates, and we're already working on that right now. It's open, so ahead of the game there. So hopefully we don't have that rush. But I don't think we need to have an enacted ordinance prior to the budget. We certainly don't want to adopt the budget before we know whether or not there would be those changes. So if there is nothing there's been several mentions of amending ordinance 1132 from changing the rate from 2214 to 2272. Councilmember Gardner?
Yes, sir. I was going to make that motion to amend that to 2272.
Second.
Mr. City Attorney?
If we're making that amendment, I found a typo of mine. In the first paragraph, I wrote a code section 14-232-201, and it should be -101. So I'd ask Councilmember Gardner to be willing to put that in his motion.
That was a big error, yes. Thank you, sir. Yeah, I'll, as the attorney requested, 14232-101.
Thank you, sir.
Does everyone understand that? Okay, we've got a motion and a second to amend ordinance 1132 from the rate being 2214 to 2272, as well as in the first whereas section, changing it from 14-232-201 to 14-232-101. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. If, with no objections, I would ask the city clerk to read that by title only.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1132, an ordinance to amend the Maumelle City Code to increase the solid waste collection fee and for other purposes.
All right, is there anything further? If not, we will move on to the next agenda item, which is Resolution 2024-34. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, Pulaski County, Arkansas, Resolution Number 2024-34, a resolution to approve the disposal of city surplus property.
Yeah, do we have the exhibits for this? These are sanitation vehicles, a 2010 side load refuse truck and a 2002 rear load refuse truck. Mike, can you explain what these vehicles are to us?
Those two vehicles are trade-in vehicles for the sanitation trucks that we have on order right now. I believe one trade-in value is $20,000, and the other one is $30,000.
So if I'd open the floor for discussion. It's pretty basic, but it doesn't hurt my feelings if we're not expecting to trade these in the next 2 weeks?
Whenever the trucks are built out.
Okay. So, timing is up to the city council. Councilmember Gardner?
I don't think a pretty exhibit would make me change my vote one way or the other. So I was gonna make a motion to adopt Resolution 2024-34.
We've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Mosley?
So these things aren't gonna be sold at auction, they're gonna be traded in?
They're traded in to the company that's building these two new trucks.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional discussion on Resolution 2024-34? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. That brings the next item is Resolution 2024-35, authorizing the mayor to execute a solid waste agreement. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, a resolution to be entitled Resolution Number 2024-35, a resolution to authorize the mayor to execute a solid waste facility financial assurance agreement under Statute 86-1603, contract of obligation, and for other purposes.
Thank you. Okay, so first of all, this has nothing to do with anything that we talked about regarding the rate increase. What this, nothing to do with that. Each year, y'all may recall, because I think we all go through the process of looking at the sanitation budget and ask why there's this line item that has $5,500 in it that we never spend any money out of it. And that is because to operate the transfer station, state law requires that we have a certain amount of money already appropriated to shut down the facility in the event that we need to shut it down. It's easier to think of this in terms of if we ran a giant, we just run a small transfer station, but if we ran a dump, for example, the state would require us to have enough money to shut that down properly so that we don't just hang up a sign that says closed and there's rubbish all over the place. So we already appropriate this money. It's already appropriated this year. We have no desire or expectation that we're closing the transfer station, but as part of the licensing, it's just something that we've got to do. And this is the contract with the Department of Energy related. I'll go ahead and open the floor for discussion if there is any. If there is none, I entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 2024-35.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. One last item of new business, and that's the election of the President Pro Tem for September 19th. That's the next City Council meeting. I will not be able to attend. That means that one of you lucky council members will get to run that meeting. Historically, though not always, it has been the more senior council member, but it's up to the council. There's no rules or regulations. I'll open the floor for discussion.
Are we moving it to Thursday or can we put it on the typical Monday?
It should be on the typical Monday. Is the date wrong? It is for the September 16th council meeting. Huh. Does anyone want to nominate themselves or someone else? Councilmember Mosley?
I'd rather see it go to somebody that hadn't done it yet, just I think we've had Williams and me and somebody else.
Gardner and Mazzoni.
You guys have both done it, so, what do you say, Mr. Tierney?
Someday before I retire in 2027, I'll consider that.
Was that a nomination, Councilmember Mosley?
Yes, sir. Second.
I have a motion and a second by Councilmember Mosley to nominate Councilmember Tierney to serve as President Pro Tem for the next council meeting. Are there any objections from Councilmember Tierney?
No.
If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. And I always enjoy watching those council meetings. I have no mayor's comments, council member comments. Councilmember Mosley.
Mr. Shin, the item on the planning agenda involving the Pfeiffer property, I wasn't able to go to either of those meetings. Is that the property that's right across the boulevard here over on Commerce Drive? Pardon?
Behind the U-Haul.
Okay, and they did what?
It's just an extension for them to lay out their plat. They took on a third piece of property, and they've been trying to adjust their plat layout.
Okay.
They brought in another engineer and replaced Holloway, and they brought in another construction company.
All right. I've got a question about that over there. I know they did some grading. They utilized the grading ordinance, I think, to grade off that property, and it's been a long time since they did that. And I was wondering if they are in violation of the grading ordinance and need to be planting some trees.
Mr. Grummer, come on down.
Scott Grummer, 550 Edgewood Drive. I apologize, I was texting at the time when you were asking the question, but I heard planting trees and track, and I'm assuming it's the over off of Maumelle Valley. I'm sorry, not Maumelle Valley.
No, sir. The Pfeiffer property, there was a question about,
It was
Councilmember
the grading over there in the last meeting that we had. So the variance that was approved for that grading required that if a site plan was not approved within 1 year, that they would have to, I believe the ordinance states, or the variance states, that they'd have to reseed the areas and stabilize. Unfortunately, it dropped off the radar because there was a change in engineering, which I believe Councilmember Shin had mentioned in his report, and a new engineer has been applied to that, and they're working on getting us what they're going to do in order to stabilize all that up there. So that's in process, as well as finishing out the development on the one side.
Has the time expired on that, on the Pfeiffer property? Has it gone beyond, what is it, a year or 9 months? I can't remember.
The actual preliminary plat that was applied for they requested an extension, and that extension has been approved. So they've done that only to give time for the new engineer to get on board and get everything up to date and make sure that everything gets into compliance.
So at this point, you don't see them in violation because of this extension, is that correct?
The preliminary plat is not in violation. That is okay as far as the actual stabilization of that area. I would say that that has exceeded the time period that was allotted at the time when the variance was approved. And that's one thing that we're working with them to get that into compliance. So we're actively working with them on that right now.
Yeah, it sounds like they need to plant some trees, so. Can you proceed on that and not let it slip?
That's what we're doing.
All right, thank you.
Any additional council member comments? City attorney comments? City clerk comments? Oh, Councilmember Mosley comments?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I did not give, I was thinking about his answer there. I wanted to thank you for sending me some information on the accounting for the splash pad and the playground. I just opened that this morning. I had trouble getting the Excel open, and I just glanced at it, but I am getting some information in on all that. There's some things that more on the other side of things that I have some concerns about, but I'm not going to mention them here tonight. But I would like to ask if Mr. Gardner can remember, I know this project's been going for a long time, but there was a desire to bring in a 501c3 entity to handle donations and that sort of thing. And can you remember why that was done?
Councilmember Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Norris. For purposes of donations, it would be tax deductible.
I think that even if they donated to the city, it would be tax deductible. I've asked a couple of accountants, and that's something but
I think that was before your time, though.
It was, and yeah, I don't know. I'm not an accountant.
It, my recollection was for those reasons, and the fact that if somebody donates money to the city, the city council is not obligated to spend the money for the purposes that it was donated for. So someone could donate $50,000 to the city and say this money is to be used for dog popsicles and dog park. And the city council could say thank you for the money, but we're not going to use it that way. We're going to use it for a different way.
okay. So
And
you're
I think
saying,
there's a common misconception that people can't donate money to a city and get a write-off, which is my
Okay.
understanding, but I'm also not a.
and I guess you're saying, on the other hand, it's okay for a 501c3 not to use it for what it was donated for. Is that what you're saying?
No, sir, you asked why it was set up, and that's my understanding of why that was set up.
Okay. Is this project complete at this point? Is all the numbers I'm getting from you and from Mr. Rayburn, is this a final accounting, do you know?
The city's accounting is done. I don't know what the nonprofit is doing.
Okay. All right, that's all I've got tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, one more question.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Grunwald, did you want to go in and co-sponsor that audit committee thing? I'm going to name it something else, but are you interested in that at all? If not, I'll go ahead and proceed.
I don't think I'm interested. I think now that we're caught up, I feel pretty good about the way the audit is. And I do know in my research it showed that several other cities have an audit committee, but I think for the time being, it doesn't seem like we need one. If we need one at another time, you know, I would certainly bring that up again.
I would mention that this playground and the splash pad, it was this whole thing was set up, and there's actually not a signed, executed agreement between any of the parties as far as is the 501c3. Nobody can produce that, but the Parks and Rec director has been assigned the job of handling all the money as far as depositing it over into the 501c3 and writing checks and all that sort of thing. And that's probably, as far as our city attorney, he's advised that really shouldn't have been done. And I would say that if we had a financial integrity committee or an audit committee or whatever, that would be something that they should head off to begin with to keep something like this from happening. So even though our audits are caught up, there's still things, there's always going to be something that comes along. So, all right, that's all I've got. Thank you.
I will say, since my mic is still on, or off, or, okay, there's on. As a professional fundraiser, I bring this up sometimes. The 501c3, your question was, can a 501c3 use a donation for something other than it's intended? They can't. And in fact, if they did, they could potentially lose their 501c3. So any donation that was given to a 501c3 to make it tax deductible, and I don't know what a donation to the city would do, but I think that's part of the reason why the committee did that. And then when I came on the committee later, certainly, was an advocate for let's send these donations through 501c3, is because the public in general recognizes the term 501c3 as a credible tax deductible charity. So that was one reason. But any donation that's given to a 501c3, if it's for dog popsicles, it has to be used for dog popsicles. That's right. So yeah, it could be, they could be in trouble if they didn't. So and I think the committee was in communication with the 501c3 and with Philip. And you're right, he should have never been put in that position. We just didn't have any other options at that time. But I think the entire committee was very mindful of the accounting. And I also think that Beatrice kind of kept some, didn't she, Mr. Mayor? Didn't she also kind of help with that, or
No.
just from the city side, I guess?
Yeah, so the finance department was concerned with city money, public funds. Those funds that were being, the public funds, general fund money that was appropriated for those purposes. Which is pretty indicative, the city doesn't, we partner with numerous nonprofits for different organizations that provide a tremendous value and allow the city to do things oftentimes that we couldn't do. Probably the shining example of that might be Counting on Each Other and their assistance with the Center on the Lake and Department of Senior Services. We don't go in and audit their books. That's a very transparent organization, but the finance department doesn't keep up with donations to Counting on Each Other. It doesn't keep up with every dollar that they spend. It's just not, it's not how that functions. One of the lessons that I think we learned probably most sharply when there was the incident with the Friends of the Animals is trying to make sure that there's a bright line rule between the city and any nonprofits that we're working with. That is the idea that, and it was during this process that we went through and looked at our other agreements and partnerships with nonprofits to make sure that we weren't making some of the mistakes that might confuse the public as to who they're giving money to. And in this process, I had asked the city attorney his thoughts on sort of how we were handling the money with the, the Timmons Art Foundation money and the playground. And so we learned some lessons in trying to make totally different issues. I don't think anybody that wrote a check out to Timmons Art Foundation thought that money was going to the city government, but we do want to make sure that we're clear, and it's vital for public confidence that we're making sure that people know who they're donating money to and what, how that works. So we've took some knocks on the Maumelle Friends of the Animals, and we've worked on some of the other agreements and arrangements that we have with folks. Councilmember Gardner?
Yeah, you stole my thunder. Good comments. Now, what I was going to say was I appreciate the relationships that we've had with 501c3s that have helped us get projects done. I don't know what the status of this. There's an organization that has worked with the police department for years and made donations to them. And I don't recall us ever going and auditing the books of another group that was donating money to the city for a purpose, whether to buy body cameras or whatever it may be. What's that? Dog popsicles. If somebody wants to make a donation, I would highly advise against that particular cause. But no, I think this was a very good way for us to get involved as a community and build a playground and a splash pad. And that 501c3 helped coordinate over, well, there was a grant from the state that went directly to the city, but through the efforts of the people in that committee that wrote the grant, well over half of the cost of this playground and splash pad came from this work of 501c3 and the committee members that helped with that. So I completely agree that you should not have, there should be no dark areas when it comes to public funds. And the good thing is there were none in this sense because the city budgeted what the city budgeted, and the 501c3 raised money and then donated that to the city. And so I appreciate that, this organization was willing to partner with us on that. And I think we even had a discussion, and I came to this party late. They had already, that ship had already sailed when I even joined in 2018. But there was some discussion about the city even forming a 501c3, and Ms. Gronwald, I'm sure, has much more experience in this than I do, but I know a lot of cities do operate some sort of 501c3 just for instances like this, where there's a public need that people want to get behind, and they can donate money for a specific cause. So anyway, you can request numbers and everything that you want, but that playground and splash pad sure is used by a lot of kids, and I'm very thankful that it's there and that the council supported it for the most part, and we got it built for the kids in the community. It's a fantastic project that's really shown a light on public-private partnerships, and I'm really proud of that part.
Councilman, during this thank you, Councilmember Gardner. Councilmember Moses, so this was, the agreement was 2017, I want to say. I was trying to think to myself, why were they thinking of creating the 501c3? Something in my mind, I wasn't a member of the committee as a city attorney, I didn't go to those meetings. Something is jumping out at me is there was some fundraising platform that they wanted to raise money on that required, it's Red Door, Red Basket, I'm thinking might have had something to do with it. And then I'm thinking, it's what, 7 years ago? I'm thinking there might have been some sort of fundraising efforts that were wanting to be employed that was really outside of the scope of what a city would do. I don't remember what it was, but if there was, like, you're trying to sell a fundraising dinner or something along those lines, they wanted some, I could be making this up, but I think it had something to do with fundraising efforts and maybe that website needing a 501c3, but that's neither here nor there. Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, you said that the 501c3 had donated all the donations over to the city. That has not been the case. They actually, they still have a balance, and the checks were actually written out of that account for certain things like cement and various parts of the construction. So it never was really donated over. I just thought I'd make that clarification.
Well, the money that was donated to it so far, and I've only looked at the stuff that has come across my desk, which is, I think, the same stuff that you've got recently.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything on there that wasn't, for the all-inclusive playground and the splash pad. You're talking about the cement that was used for, the bases.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the
it looks like
shade
all
structure.
legitimate expenses from what I
Yeah.
can tell, so.
Yeah, and then my position has been, by the way, and I've told this to Philip, I think that they need to wrap that project up, and in my opinion, that money should be donated over to the city. There was a budget resolution that we passed where we anticipated raising, I want to say $61,000. That's in the grant, that appropriation was in the grant fund, and for the life of me, I can't figure out why we would have thought that the city was gonna be raising that amount of money, but so we'll have to do a shoring up of the grant fund, which is the difference between saying, this is the money we thought appropriated to spend, you can spend this money, here's what we anticipate matching in revenues, and if those revenues don't necessarily all come in this case, and I'm thinking it's 61, you should have the resolution, that would show that we were anticipating raising that money that was not raised, so we have to shore out that account. I've told Philip, I'm not in control of that money, but I've shared to Philip that I think that extra money, once the project is done and built out, ought to be donated back to the city to cover the costs that, we had. But again, like Councilmember Gardner said, and it sounds like we're talking a whole lot about an organization that has, so far as we can see, spent all of the money for the intended purposes, an organization and a committee of people who have raised, if we were able to leverage the community like this for every project, we would have so much more things, because, over half the cost of the playground was through this committee. So we're talking an awful lot about it, but I haven't heard of anything having gone wrong or money not spent in proper ways or in the like.
I'm trying to fill in some blanks, and that's been helpful. Yeah, there's about 45,000 still over there, and I agree with you, Mr. Mayor, that should come over to the city and back off of
That's
whatever
my
we've
opinion, but it's not something within my realm of control. And so I know there's committee members in this room. I've shared it with Philip as to what I think should happen with that. And I'm fully confident that the committee will it'll either be used on the playground or probably come to the city, but I can't guarantee that. Councilmember Gardner? Okay. Any other city clerk comments? If there's nothing further, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adjourn the city council meeting of September the 3rd, 2024.
We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. We adjourn. Thank you for your service.